Hello and welcome to another random adventure with me, Justin. Here we are in Syracuse City, Utah, and we are heading to that place, the museum. Yeah, I've never been here before. My first association with Syracuse City came when I was a kid. There was a furniture store that started out here called RC Willey's. It's a big store now in Utah and other states, I think. But my dad worked for the original building here in Syracuse, and I remember as a child coming out to visit him at his store, and it seemed like it was forever out here in the middle of nowhere. And now that store's no longer there. They've moved on, they've tore it down, sold the property, moved on to different locations. And it's a thriving metropolis out here. So it's quite a bit of changes. And then also I remember as a child that we'd go out to Antelope Island, or at least tried to. When I was a kid, there wasn't access. In the 80s, it rained and snowed so much that the Great Salt Lake actually overflowed the causeway. And I remember driving out to the edge of the causeway, and you could look out, but the road was actually flooded over. There was no access to that. It wasn't until I think like 1990s, 92, 3, something like that. It was right before I started high school that they actually rebuilt it, and now you can get access out there, and it's one of my favorite places in the whole world. I actually have a video if you want to check that out of Antelope Island. But that's my original connections to Syracuse City. Now, I live in Clearfield, which is right next to Syracuse City, and I've always been curious to come here. So let's go check it out. Now, this museum is located right off of Antelope Drive, and it's a thriving metropolis. The Walmart's right about there. It's a busy city now. It's over by the fire station and the city office buildings, and there's, in the summertime, right over here, there's like a little splash pad my kids love to play at. And so we're right here, right in the middle of it all. But yet, if you come here from the parking lot, you can see the museum, and you can see some old-fashioned farm equipment. And the first thing that caught my eye is this little beauty of a cabin over here. I love old cabins. Now, I rarely have seen any around here that are original, but even reproductions are pretty cool. So let's go over and check it out, see what it is and who it's by. Now this is pretty cool because if you read right there, this is the historical Wilcox cabin, by the way. But right here, Milton and Joyce Wilcox donated this sweet little log home to our museum grounds. And because of Milt's foresight and dedication in restoring this log home in 1972, we're able to understand and enjoy the beauty. So it's actually been restored. And this is the William H. and Emily Barber Wilcox home. It was 1905. They moved to Syracuse with all their possessions. They had 10 children, and they lived in this home until 1911 with 10 children, 8 boys and 2 girls. And I cannot even see on the inside of it because looks like there's some curtains here. But shoot, they're beautiful curtains, but I wish you could see inside, because my guess is it's only a 1-room, maybe 2-room home, little cabin, totally restored. Can you imagine living in this? 1911. Maybe I'm old, but that doesn't seem like that long ago. A little over 100 years. And it was brought here and placed here for everyone to check out. I tell you, my great-grandfather built a house over in Warren, Utah, and it's barely standing. I wish somebody would restore it. It's not this cool. It's not a log cabin. It's just a house. But I lived in it for a little while. And there are quirks in any house like this. This looks really well done. And then next door to it, they also have a memorial for the first social center. About 1972 was built here in this area. Pretty cool. I'm digging it. Now, again, I've never been here before. It says museum. I don't know if that's the official building or if that brick building there at the end of the walkway is it. But let's just go for a walk. Enjoy this old farm equipment. This kind of stuff always reminds me of hanging out at my grandpa Martin's. Larry Martin, when he lived in Rigby, had old farm equipment like this around the area where he lived. We would play on that stuff all the time. This is an old plow. You can see that. An old alfalfa grain drill. Interesting. Most of these things are so primitive. I'm guessing that's a manure spreader. You put the manure in there and then it kicks it out here and goes all over the fields. Look at that. Rubber wheeled already. Manure spreader. I was right. They had that when I was growing up. We'd see those all over the place. Crazy. This looks like a tiller or, yeah, cultivating disc is what they officially call it. Beet seed drill. Maybe we'll learn about sugar beets here. Now I know sugar beets were really popular in Utah. Not so much anymore. But they would have sugar. Obviously there's a seat right there. And I'm guessing that they would put the seeds in this little canal here and use this to plant sugar beets. Very popular. And a sled, bobsled. I don't know what they would use that for in the winter time unless they were, I don't know, transporting people, maybe ice. Who knows? Okay, so this says entrance and the building right there says Syracuse Regional Museum. So let's go inside this building and check it out first. Okay, when you walk in, this is what you get. There's one nice guy here. He's the curator that works here, and he's offered to go unlock that other building. So yeah, good thing we came here first. Entering Syracuse. Now, this is one thing I didn't know. How did it get its name, right? So as pioneers came to settle the land in 1847, a local salt business opened up along the Great Salt Lake. So that's pretty typical. And in 1884, William Galbraith bought the salt business and printed the name Syracuse on the bags of salt that he harvested. The name came from a company he knew in Syracuse, New York. It was the first time that that name was used in the area. From then on, other businesses opened up with that name. Syracuse Bathing Resort, Syracuse Junction, Syracuse Post Office, and it just stuck. And here we are. I always wondered if it was after Syracuse. And officially it was. So there's a lot to look at here. I don't know quite where to start. So we're just gonna kind of walk. And check out all the musical instruments. This is really kind of a small little place, but they have so many fun things. Now I know that there was a lot of families from around. It's really cool that they have some of these oriental pictures. Japanese probably from the war. Yes, exactly. Cool. Look at that kimono. That kimono is from the 1940s. Looks like something straight out of MASH. If you're watching this, you probably don't know what MASH is. The old people don't watch this channel. Deseret songs. Of course, there's the church's influence here. The High Council. Now this is kind of cool, pretty current. Here they have the Syracuse Temple groundbreaking shovel for the Syracuse Temple that should be opening up here in the next couple of months. Due to COVID-19, attendance at the temple site was by invitation only. Wow. That's pretty cool. And speaking of temples, they also have some of the Kirtland Temple plaster here as well. Not sure the connection to Syracuse, but still pretty cool. Now, I knew that Syracuse was home to a bathing resort on the shores of the Great Salt Lake. Apparently, Syracuse was the only place that had natural trees. And the Great Salt Lake for a while was used for a lot of different resorts. But this one had one of the better ones. So they're showing off the swimsuits from 1893. There's a men's swimsuit and also the women's swimsuits. That would be awesome. I would totally wear that even today. But they have some of the pictures from the resort here. That would be so cool. Opened in 1887. They actually had a line of trains from Ogden to that resort. Super cool. Also shows how they gathered salt off the Great Salt Lake. Now again, I told you about Antelope Island. That's what it looked like to me when I was growing up. That right there is the gate that takes you on the road to Antelope Island. That's what I remember looking at when I was a kid. And the island right there in the far, far background. That's about all I knew of the island growing up. Till they rebuilt it in the 90s. Now this is a wedding dress of Alice Smedley Dahl, who helped to found this museum. There she is in her wedding dress. And she lived to be 103 years old. 103. That's her actual wedding dress. She got married in the Salt Lake Temple in 1943. And she kept that dress. Sorry about the angle. I have a display case. Looks like they're adding new things here. It's beautiful, isn't it? A few other dresses close by. And another wedding dress from 1909. It's beautiful. I wish I could show you the size of those slippers relative to my hand. It's hard to show, but it's small. Believe me, super small. And here are some more dresses. I like the hair on the mannequin. It gives it like a little bit of a creepy yet realistic vibe. Here we enter the military section, some uniforms. Wow, this is pretty cool. Some sand from Iwo Jima. If you don't know your history, look it up. That is pretty cool. One of the soldiers who lost their life there was Syracuse resident Joy Eastman. Again, different memories of residents here who served in the military. I don't know that person. Morris Hanson, but maybe it's a relative. I'll have to look that one up. Again, Scouts. Scouts used to be really big. Man, I miss that. How cool would it have been to be in a Syracuse Boy Scout band? Look at those old uniforms. And then below that, they also have some handbooks. I kind of feel bad for this new generation. Scouts provided me such awesome experiences. And down here again, maybe it's another relative, Elvin Hansen. That's his revolver there, locked up. He was the Syracuse police chief for a little while. There's a picture of him there in the back. See if I can get a picture of that. It's nice to have Hansen last name. It's very common. Lots of relatives out there. Lots of different types of coins here. Also some games, some marbles. Now this brings me back. G.I. Joes. So cool. The ones I have weren't that size. They were actually smaller. So these are a little bit older than the ones I had. But they had all the outfits and everything that went with it. And I don't know whatever happened to it, but I remember my dad had a model similar to this, but it was a fire truck. Some more toys. Super cool. Here's some old technology. I wrote once upon a time in my book about my life how my dad actually brought home a phone similar to that when he worked at R.C. Willey's. I thought it was the coolest thing. That was the first type of cell phone that I ever knew. Way cool. And before computers, of course, there was typewriters. I remember doing reports for school on a typewriter. Very similar, not to that, but closer to that. Way cool. Not as easy to type on as you might think. Computers were not that widely available. Now, Syracuse Lady Lions. A lot of history here, it looks like. And one thing I'm always fascinated by is old glasses. My dad has a pair of his grandpa's glasses. Look at that. I wish I could get the glare off just a little bit, but look how thick those are. And those women's glasses. Now that I have to wear glasses, I really appreciate frames like this. Okay, we'll take a break for a minute here. Walk over to the other building. Now, he told me that if ever it's locked, they lock it up because they don't want anybody getting in. It's obviously a really, really small museum. And so, rather than have somebody here 24/7, they just keep it locked up. But there's somebody during business hours that's always available there. So this is pretty cool over here. Let's flip it around and take a peek. So as you walk in, the very first thing you see off to your left here is a old pioneer kitchen. Kind of a, I don't know, recreation. You have to use your imagination a little bit. The walls are painted to look like an old cabin. And grandma there with her hands on everything. An old ice box to her right there. And of course you get the stove. Fire it up. Make me some grits. I don't know, never had grits before. Biscuits, let's say biscuits. And then to the right here, right across from there, you get grandma's apron. Some old cooking pots, pans, cans, bottles, spices, apron, just everything grandma would have had, possibly. And some old shoe forms. This helps the shoes last a little bit longer. Look at those baby shoes. Now, I love those. Wish the glare wasn't there, but you could see the baby there. Across the way, they have some old tools. Looks like a barbed wire display. Holy cow, they have a lot of barbed wire here. Somebody has been collecting for a while. Now, I never really understood the excitement from barbed wire. So many different types, and I'm sure they're all for different reasons. But this really fascinates me. This is war wire. Hard to say that fast 5 times. But look at the razor edges on that. Can you imagine trying to get past that? Ugh. Even working with that, trying to put that up. Sure, they had tools and things like that, but I would be so afraid of getting cut. But just look, wire, and more wire. Some of these are kind of fascinating, I'm not gonna lie. If you get a minute to come and compare, I would love to know why there is so much. Some of it looks like it was for railroads. Of course, it was to keep cattle in. But there must have been, each farmer kind of made their own patterns, I would imagine. I don't know. It's very well labeled. You can see like dates on here, 1877, 1874, 1800s. Man. All right, I kind of have a new appreciation for barbed wire. Something I didn't realize. Okay, well, I don't know what we're getting into, but something tells me we're gonna see a tractor somewhere. Okay, this is gonna be Eliza's favorite thing in this whole museum. They have a 2-headed calf. That is super, super cool. In Salt Lake, I've seen a 2-headed lamb at the museum down there. But this to me is pretty rare. I wonder if this was on somebody's farm here. You know what? When in doubt, read the signs. 2-headed calf. Tomorrow, when the farm boys find this freak of nature, they will wrap his body in newspaper and carry him to the museum. But tonight, he is alive and in the north field with his mother. It is a perfect summer evening. The moon rises over the orchard, the wind in the grass, and as he stares into the sky, there are twice as many stars as usual. I love that. This calf was born March 1st, 1992, and he was delivered breech. So he died shortly after birth. That makes me feel a little bit better. But he was here at the Larry E. Mills Farm in Syracuse, Utah. Wow. Here locally even. Very unusual. And super cool. But let's not forget about those cows that are here to feed us too. Don't look. This might be rated R. Oh, wait. My dad taught me how to milk a cow, and this one is dry. Uh-oh. It says, don't pull, which I'm not. I'm squeezing, just for the record. And there is nothing in these teats. Well, that tells you why they don't do it that way much anymore. Not that I'm a professional, but now they use these. This is what sucks right on there. That's the way to do it. Of course, it wouldn't be loose like that. It would be connected to something like a milking machine here. I actually was raised on a farm in Hooper of a dairy farm for the church. Learned to hate milk there. I don't drink milk anymore. My parents tell me I drank it straight from the cow, but perhaps that's why I don't like it now. The last dairy farm in Davis County was in Syracuse, below the bluff, until 2013. So not too many dairy farms around here anymore. It's too bad. Inside here we also have an old chicken coop. This one's nicer than any chicken coop I've ever seen. But right in front of it is an old rocker. Anybody know what that's for? They would put cream inside that and then take it, rock it back and forth, and it would turn into butter. That was easier than churning the butter because you could just put your foot on there, or children could do it, and it was easy to do while you did other things. But again, an old chicken coop. Pretty cool. I don't see a tractor, but I see these old buggies. Love the horses. All restored. And then these murals here are pretty cool, not gonna lie. Seagulls as they're plowing the fields. And here we see, I think I just flipped around in a circle. Alright, I don't see any tractors yet, but here is the old Syracuse Fire Department. Piece of history here. These old fire trucks are pretty cool. Now, if you have any ancestors or want to look at old homes, they do have some old homes along with their locations. Not sure if any of these still exist or not. That would be cool if they did. Some irrigation maps, ideas of how they got the water here. You know, we live in a desert. The water doesn't come easy. Oh, now this is cool. This is an old pipe. And I've seen in Ogden, where I come from, you see how the wood is wrapped by metal. That was what they used to use. They didn't have metal or aluminum pipes or steel pipes. They used wood. Wood. How efficient is that? Not. Okay, let's go over here. I'm gonna walk real fast as we get to the end, and then we'll walk back. Okay, here we go. So, crops that made Syracuse, of course, potatoes. I'm a little partial to that, being an Idaho born. They also have wheat, tomatoes, and sugar beets. Again, I have never seen a real sugar beet. I feel like they're nearly extinct, especially because we have sugar cane now for all of our sugar. But that is all I heard about, is Utah and sugar beets growing up. That guy right there represents the first furrow in Syracuse. Now, a furrow is planting the crops. And as a 14-year-old lad, early pioneer David Cook plowed the first furrow in 1876 and planted winter wheat for the summer harvest. He lived in a covered wagon similar to this one until 1877, when a log cabin could be built. Crazy. I also dig these old cars, man. Now what gets me is we are on camera, but there is nobody here right now. And look how close we are to this thing, man. Do not touch, but it is beautiful. This is an old sugar beet truck that they would have used to haul the sugar beets. It's a 1929 model, and you can see the look of it as it was purchased in 1964. Just beat up, man. And then fully restored. He bought that truck when he was 14 years old and then restored it. Paid $25, the story goes, and towed it home. He completed the restoration in 1967 and drove it. What a cool story. Him and his wife dated in it. His children drove in it. And then they brought it here and parked it for us to enjoy. This is why I'm a nerd when it comes to museums. Stories like that. Look at this. This is why we don't have sugar beets, by the way. A young farm girl surrounded by sugar beets is holding a cup of sugar equivalent to the amount taken from a single sugar beet. Took all those sugar beets to make our sugar. Look at that. Sugar beets everywhere. Harvesting it. I don't get it. I don't know why it kind of just faded away. Now, I know Syracuse onions still exist. We're still here. We still grow onions. This plant is still here. I guess the soil's good for onions. It's now called Onions 52, and they've grown their business. That's a cool mascot. That one doesn't even make me cry. This representative of a old store here in Syracuse. Let's walk to the back of the building. Okay. Left or right? Let's choose the right. The old blacksmith shop. Oh, that is cool. Somebody's a pretty fun artist. Hey, let's see if they can look at us like we look at them. Hi. Wave, everybody. Anyways. Pretty cool. Old horseshoes. It's a lot of work. But you can take those horseshoes and make something pretty amazing. More than just a horse shoe. And then to the left where we would have gone, we'll just make a big circle and go into here. Another truck. Okay, now this is exactly what I was talking about. Remember when I started this? The very first introduction to Syracuse? R.C. Willey. You can't talk about R.C. Willey without talking about Bill Child, my dad's old boss. From farm boy to CEO. If you want to learn about the history of a pretty amazing little furniture company, check out that wall, homegrown R.C. Willey. From their humble beginnings, Rufus Call Willey. Did you know that that's what RC stood for? 1932, started selling appliances door to door out of his red pickup truck, which I'm assuming is whoosh, flip to the right, red pickup truck, appliance in the back. For 18 years, he built up a reputation of hard work. Many people back in 1932 didn't have refrigerators or electric rangers, so he ended up wiring customers' houses to put in the stuff that they needed. You can't run appliances without electricity. So he hooked up the electricity. Then he would sell them a refrigerator. So in 1950, after increasing demands, R.C. Willey built the first store next to his home in Syracuse. Not too far from here. Yep. So Bill Child, he was the son-in-law of R.C., and he took over the company in 1954. So I said it was in Utah, but it's also Idaho, Nevada, California. Nice. The bigger building, the original, was demolished in 2020 and moved to Layton. And if you look there, It's a huge building, and the original site now is home to the R.C. Willey Parkway Homes. Nothing more to see there. So here is how it all started. Now I've heard he's buried in Syracuse. I don't know. Maybe we'll do some research and see. Pretty amazing. Almost 100 years old. But this is what Syracuse was to me as a kid, visiting my dad. Okay, out we go. Wait, before we leave, if you like the museum, you can't forget to ring the bell. Good museum, Syracuse. So yeah, that's a random adventure here in Syracuse. Another museum for the books. Another got nothing better to do today, might as well go visit. And another video for you to watch. So thanks for joining me. But wait, this video isn't over yet. I wanted to stop by the Syracuse Cemetery because I have a connection here to Syracuse. You see, I knew my great-grandma, at least my step-great-grandma technically, growing up. She married my great-grandfather Walter, who is my father's grandfather. And so I wanted to stop by cemetery here in Syracuse and say hi. She was married once to a man whose last name was Adams. His first name, Willis. And he passed away, and she met my great-grandfather, Walter Wayment. And so June Larson Adams became June Larson Adams Hanson, or June Larson Hanson. I knew her for quite a while. She died in 2007, and she was the sweetest lady. And her headstone is here. Ooh, hello, Shadow. Man. And so, just wanted to come pay respects and say hello. I never knew her husband. I knew some of her children kind of okay. Looks like it could be cleaned up a little bit with her children's names here on the back. But coincidentally, if you look down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 headstones from her, you'll see this headstone, probably the biggest one here, which says Willey. And if you round around the front, you'll see the name that we talked about today, Rufus C. Willey, or R.C. Willey. I did not know that they were buried so closely together in a strange coincidence. So yeah, not only do I have connections and memories as a child, but I also have connections and memories through marriage here in the Syracuse Cemetery. So thank you for joining me today. I didn't really expect to go on this little adventure. I had the day off, and as you can see, it's a beautiful day in February, and I thought, why not take advantage of the weather, right? So as usual, if you get an opportunity, go out and have a random adventure. We'll see you next time.